All right, so another timing belt video. We're doing it here on this orange car. Just going to kind of keep this one separate. There's some other videos with this car. As you can tell, some of the stuff is apart. We started taking everything down. We are doing brakes and suspension and control arms on this also. So we have all that stuff taken apart out of the way. Let's check this side out over here. So you can see down in here. What I like to do is I like to run the chain from here down over to the alternator belt. I will then hold this with my engine hoist, and I'll drop the transmission mount down and off, and then I'll pull this out of the way, and I come over here and I undo the center mount, and I slide the engine that way with a strap while supporting it with my engine hoist. Okay, that gives me room to get down in here and install said timing belt. We are also going to be at the same time installing a new transmission mount, the upgraded bolt kit, the solid center, and the engine lateral mounts also. Okay, so we have everything in here. AGP sends a kit or instructions with their kit on how to install them with the washers. We've done that enough, so we know how that goes. Okay, but so to get everything prepped, I remove the upper bracket out of the way, the upper mount. This plate needs to come off because it'll be spun, and we get new bolts to go into there also. All right, so with that, we have the coolant drain, which is pretty darn ugly. So this thing's going to be getting some new coolant also installed. And with that, like I said, I pulled my intake off so that I can get in here. You're going to want to unbolt your power steering pump, which is 3 bolts there. And then all I have to do is undo this. Like I said, the charge pipes are off, both of them. So we're going to slide this thing over. We are going to be doing the valve cover also. You can tell I started getting some of these removed. So we're going to be pulling that off. But I'll probably wait till last to do that. That way I have my valve cover in place. I can slide it over. If when I do my cam caps and I have to do the reseal on this, I'll either support it with jack stands and then I'll pull that off. And then I will at that time clean the valve cover, put the new gasket on after I seal the cam caps, and everything else is done over here. But with that, we got the balancer. Lower crank pulley, we used the puller for that. I'll show you what that looks like. I actually have that put away. And then we got to get this cover off, and we'll be pulling the gear off. But I'll have to get everything rotated back around to 0, top dead center, before I start pulling the belt. I'm kind of curious what we're going to see inside here. Slide off of here. We can see what we have to deal with. Yeah. You can tell it looks like something might have been touching the cover there. There's some pieces of stuff, a little bit of oil on it. This will be our cleanup pile. So you get to see that. So, there we go. It's definitely the original belt. Looks like it might be starting to get some cracks. Alright, we'll see this as soon as I get it off. And like I said, depending on how this stuff comes apart, we'll do the valve cover gasket before or after. But this is the kit we have, just the Gates belt, which is going to work out just fine. Looks like we got the good Mopar tensioner and stuff. Dayco water pump will work out great. We have the gasket. Here's our cam seal and our front main seal. So we're going to be installing all of this stuff. I'll show you how to do it and get everything installed. Just got to get this stuff out of the way. I don't want anything damaged. So everything's boxed up here real nice. Ripping and tearing. We are unscrewing and unplugging and removing. So there's our bracket. We got to clean that up and grind those little centering tabs for our factory mount. It goes this way. Excuse me. Go in there. Yep, something like that. Holds it in place. We're going to grind them out. We'll be replacing that. So now I use a strap. This thing's pulled over. It is now supported by the engine hoist. So we're going to take the side bracket. That needs to come off. This is already undone. And then we're going to take the rest of our covers off. We got to zero out our timing and take off the lower cover, and then we'll be removing the tensioners and the belts and the gears and the lower gear and just getting everything cleaned up. So basically we'll start here. These are 15s. There's a couple 8s that hold this cover in. I use the factory bolt. I have a fancy little giant nut that I use in there, and then I put the bolt back into the crank, and then I can rotate it around. If it gets too tight, I just can hit it with the impact gun. It pulls it back out, but I'll do that, get it around, and then when I take this off, if it looks like the lower's leaking, we'll be replacing the inner seal on that. So it's 15, 8. We'll get that stuff off. You can tell there's some fluid leakage down here, but the big part is it's kind of, you can't really see this, so I got to turn this camera sideways maybe and get it down in here. If you take a note, can you see in there? Let me grab a light. Use my phone here. Take notice, you can see where the tensioner setting is. So I think the spring actually broke in there because it's not on. I will double check to see if this is tight. I didn't put anything on it as of just yet, but you can see that the tensioner is not doing its job right there. This thing should be, I said that should be spun up. Look, here we go. Yeah, look, see, something's messed up on the tensioner. It's the first time I've seen that. It's a good thing this was caught in time, and like I said, there was a little bit of a wear mark on it. So I'm going to get the rest of this stuff off. I'll show you what it looks like dirty, along with all of the parts over here that we got to wash up. And then we'll show you what they look like clean. The best way that I found to do this is I use a little bit of WD-40, and then I just have the standard brushes, so you can tell. Okay, so this is just really quick. You can rinse with some of this. See what you got, nice and clean, or you can get in here and you can wipe it off with a rag. But what I'll do is I'll get through. I'll use some WD-40. I got a small brush and I got a large brush, so I'll get everything scrubbed down. I stick some old rags, paper towels that I have left over, or rags, and some cardboard down there to catch anything that's running down off. And like I said, I'll clean this out the best that I can, and then what I'll do when I'm finished with that, I'll rinse it with some brake clean, and then everything will run down off. And then I'll pull my water pump. I'll get that. If the front crank seal needs replaced, we'll pull that off after we're done cleaning. The valve cover is ready to come off. I have the engine supported. So once I get all this cleaned over here, I'm going to pull this off so that I can install new cam seals, and I'll reseal this end cam cap here at the same time. And with that, we have all of this over here that's going to need to be cleaned. The inside of this bracket, our lower crank, our cam. You know, there's even some dirt here on the coil. Here is the cold side pipe, the lower cover, the other cover, the inner cover. I think already made it into the parts washer, so we'll be cleaning that also. But this is just real quick look at what is dirty here, and this is most of what we're going to be cleaning besides getting the valve cover off. And then I'll probably come across here when I get this thing together, and I'll clean the front side of this head and down across here, because this is really bad. This end cam cap here has been leaking for a long time, so I'll try to clean a lot of that stuff up too once I get the engine set back over where it's supposed to be. Got this pretty clean. Like I said, it is kind of hard to get in here and get stuff. It actually looks pretty good from the side here. But got the cam seals are now in. Resealed the cam cap. I used anaerobic sealer this time because somebody threw a fit in my one video that I used silicone, but you can use either. Just be careful where it gets so you don't clog any of the port passages in there where the oil flows through. So we got the valve cover cleaned up, which is a big difference. And when I install the water pump, I'll put a bolt here so that I make sure it's lined up. And then when I'm doing this one, I put a bolt there. And then I snag this one down. Like, it's just weird. It's a tensioner, and then you have one bolt holding it in place until after it's assembled. So, pop that off. This inner cover's pretty cleaned up. I started wiping down some of these. And I'll get all of these in place, along with the new idler. I have the cam gears. They're all cleaned up. We still have a couple things here we got to clean. But these are ready to go. And we have our side covers all cleaned up here. They're ready to go. So I'm going to get the rest of this stuff. I got to wipe off a couple more bolts, and then I'll get this together. We'll get the gears on, and then I'll show you what it looks like with the timing belt. Progress here. So the belt's on. We did 2 rotations. I was off a tooth here on the back side, brought that around, rotated it around, double checked our tension, got everything set in place, and started installing our covers. Now with the solid center mount, we have this ground off right here. So I'm going to stick a little bit of anti-seize and then get just a little bit here on the thread started. And then we're going to get our bolt in here. We're going to undo our strap, and then we can pull this over and get everything set into place and get ready to do our transmission mount. Alrighty, we got our center mounts all in. I'll have to double check, get that tightened up. Now, I got our plate over here is all cleaned up, and we are in the middle of trying to install our mount. Let's just check this out. We got the lower mount on, balancers on, all the belts are on, they're where they need to be. I got the power steering. I need to, well, actually, yeah, I get that tightened up. Right now we're doing the valve cover gasket. This is the Felpro one, so it gets tucked in. So we got our little end off here, little half moon cam cap that you could tell was definitely not sealed, but it's gonna be sealed this time. All right. A bit more right there. I need to wipe out. Just being picky. So I'll put a bead of silicone across this, and then one here, and one on either side of that cap on there. And we're ready to install the valve cover. And then once that's in, I'm going to work on trying to get some of the other stuff finished up. And yeah, I got to, we're going to be installing a crank sensor. So I have the starter ready to go, and we got to fix this wire down here. That way we don't have any problems with that down the road. But I mean, everything is coming together and it's really looking good. These always bend every time I do this, so I kind of just straighten them back out, and it seems to work. I've done so many of them now. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to get the valve cover on, and we'll show you the next step. We have everything reassembled. The intake is on. Check out how nice and clean that cylinder head looks down in here. And we got down and across on this side. I wiped everything down the best that I could. I don't have the coil installed yet, but that's going to be for another video along with some of these other lines. So we have everything here all done. We cleaned up our cold side pipe. If you go back in, you can see how much oil buildup was on that. Also took care of this. And I cleaned up the coil some because it had some oil spots on it. Still got to wipe this off just a little bit. So we got all that stuff cleaned up, and all the suspension and everything is back together. So that's pretty much going to be the end of the timing belt video. So with that being said, we're going into the next one. You're going to want to check it out. Here we go.